When my kids were young, I wanted to teach them and equip them to live life on their own as adults. And so they were all responsible for certain chores around the house. I would have chore charts. Oftentimes, they would mark their chores being accomplished by putting a gold star or sticker on that chore for the day. From the moment that my kids were born, practically, they were conditioned by cause and effect. You see, if they did something good, they would get a gold star. If they finished their chore for the day, they would get a gold star. If they finished their schoolwork, they might get some praise or a hug. However, when my kids would make a mistake, they would be corrected or they'd be held accountable for that until it was made right. Sometimes they might have even felt judged by me or other adults in their life. Now, I don't know about you, but I like hugs and praises and getting that gold star next to my name. We grow up thinking that our actions determine our worth and acceptance. Makes it very hard to grasp the concept of grace. You see, grace is unearned and undeserved favor from God. It is so freeing, yet so hard to accept because it's not based on actions. I take a deeper dive into what grace is and isn't in episode 6 of Mom2Mom Mentoring. If you haven't listened to that, I'd encourage you to just press pause on this episode, head back over to the previous one. On today's episode, I'm going to walk you through the 5 A's that will guide you into grace. But before we get into that, let's get our footing on solid ground and launch from the place of truth. The best place I know to find that truth is the Word of God. The Father finds such joy in helping and caring for your every need. Psalm 55:22 puts it this way: cast your burden upon the Lord, and He will sustain you. Mama, what is that burden that you can throw at the feet of Jesus today? Jesus communicates the same thing to us in Matthew 11 when He says, come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Now, I don't know about you, but I could sure use rest. He invites you to come to Him and give Him your struggles. It is a day by day, often moment by moment, coming to Him and casting those cares on Him, giving Him your trouble, your pain, your grief, your overwhelm, and letting Him make that great exchange for His mercy and compassion and grace. I heard Joyce Meyer once say it like this: God has mountains and mountains of mercy that He died to give us. We're just not asking for it. On today's episode of Mom2Mom Mentoring, we are going to climb that mountain together and tap into the abundance of God's grace. My name is Misty Hughes. I am a busy mom of 4 unique human beings. I would go to all the conferences, read all the books on how to be better, do better, build better homes, build better habits. I'd say, I can do that. That's a great idea. I'll go home and I'll implement that this year, or maybe this week. And then I would shut down, overload, too much, too fast. I didn't know where to even begin. I often felt incapable of doing anything to move the needle forward. Getting through each day was just more than enough. So I just survived, but I longed to thrive. Well, I'm taking all those ups and downs of life, all the wins and losses and learning that I've done, and I'm giving you the biggest life lesson from those early years. That is the lesson of simplicity. Here on Mom2Mom Mentoring, my goal as your mom mentor is to keep it simple. On each episode, we will focus on one thing. Yep, just one thing, one idea, one strategy, one tool to help you become the best version of you in the here and now. So grab that pile of laundry, hit the play button, and let's multitask together as we dive into the 5 A's of growing in grace. I want you to raise your hand if you can identify with any of these. You beat yourself up. Ugh, why did I do it that way? Or why did I do that again? You parent from a place of shame or guilt, maybe even fear. You replay the recordings of where you messed up or what you said or did that was wrong. You feel like you'll never measure up. I'll never be good enough. I'll never get it right. Maybe you find yourself going around and around these mountain of thoughts that keep you from living abundantly, living in freedom, and living in peace and joy. Maybe you're like me and you even set up camp in these thoughts. Well, I'm here to tell you that's not grace. And our first step is to be aware when we're not living in that always available, abundant grace of God. Awareness is where the journey begins. And the sooner we can begin this journey, the better. If you feel like you haven't landed in that space of all-sufficient grace, just ask God to make you aware or increase your awareness. Pray this simple prayer throughout the day. God, make me aware in those places where I'm not living in your grace. I want to live in the abundance of your grace. The second step is to acknowledge. Actions do speak louder than words. What are your actions saying about your belief regarding God's grace? My actions said I really didn't believe his grace was sufficient for me, because I would make those commitments to myself. I'm going to be better tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow I'm not going to yell at my kids at all, or tomorrow I'm going to relax more. I was making those promises to myself and to God and even to my kids. My actions said I really didn't believe that he would catch me when I fell. So, Mom, I'm going to encourage you, be honest with yourself and acknowledge the story you tell yourself. Maybe you don't know what grace really is. Maybe you think you don't deserve God's grace. Maybe you think his grace isn't enough for you. Maybe you think I've just messed up too much for God's grace. Or maybe you just completely deflect God's grace. What do your actions speak? Step 3 is to ask. You might want to jot down some notes here, but if you're driving, just keep on driving, because remember, I'm going to share the link for the blog in the show notes. I want you to stop and ask God how he feels about the story that you tell yourself. Here's a few suggestions for questions you might want to ask. God, what do you say about my inability to believe that your grace is enough? God, what more would you like to show me about your grace? Father, where am I trying to clean up my own act instead of receiving your grace? Now, here's the hard part, Mom. You have to wait on God's response. Seriously, he wants to speak to you. He wants you to live in this always available, abundant grace. You know, he died so that you would have the freedom of his grace. When you do this exercise, I want you to write down anything and everything you sense. Let your heart flow onto the paper and let God speak through your heart. Try not to filter what you're hearing. Now, this next step is going to be a stretch. Step 4 is to apologize. I'll try to explain it. When your kids hurt someone, either intentionally or unintentionally, you teach them to say, I'm sorry, right? Well, I believe that our unwillingness or inability, fear, shame, whatever it is that might keep you from receiving God's gift of grace, I believe it breaks his heart. You see, it says that he's a good father and he wants to lavish his children with good gifts. And his grace is an incredibly tremendous gift. So whether it's intentionally or unintentionally, when we reject his grace, I think it hurts his heart. Rejecting this gift that has the power to wipe away all of your mess ups is rejecting what Christ came to accomplish. He paid the price so that we could have this great gift. And most of the time, I don't know about you, but I would neglect to acknowledge the gift. Oftentimes, I even acted like I was an entitled brat. God, the gift of your grace is not enough for me. Think about it. You might need to apologize to your father. I am so, so sorry, Father. Please forgive me. I love what James tells us. It says, but he gives more grace. God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Beloved mama, humble yourself. Repenting is an act of humility, and the result is more grace. Isn't that great news? The last thing is to accept. You can't give yourself grace. Really, how many times have you heard someone say, or maybe you've even just said it yourself, I just need to give myself grace? If you have not received his grace, you have nothing to give. You cannot give what you have not received. So, beloved mom, the next step is to accept or receive that always available abundant grace. He says he has enough. It's sufficient. Let me read it out of the Amplified Version. My loving kindness and my mercy are more than enough, always available, regardless of the situation. For my power is being perfected and is completed and shows itself most effectively in your weakness. I want to encourage you to take a moment, even now, open your hands and whisper, Father, I receive your always available, abundant grace. Jesus, thank you for making a way for me to enter into the throne room and to receive the grace that is available for me. Remember, marvelous mom, you are not alone on this journey of learning to fall into grace. I have a blog that will be linked in the show notes that goes through these 5 steps. But for a quick recap, here are the 5 A's for falling into grace. Be aware of where and when you need grace. Acknowledge your need. Ask for help from on high. Apologize to your Father for the times when you've not received his amazing gift of grace. Those times when you've said, I can do it myself. Accept his grace. And for good measure, be sure to rinse and repeat. Remember, there are mountains and mountains of grace and mercy to tap into. He's got more than enough. Just see how much he can lavish on you. That's a wrap for today's Mom2Mom Mentoring adventure. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. Remember, whether you're conquering the boardroom or conquering the laundry pile, you are doing an incredible job. Take a moment for yourself and fall back into those amazingly strong arms of the one called grace. And mom, if you're loving the wisdom, the laughter, the camaraderie, make sure to hit that follow button so you never miss a mom-to-mom chat and grab one of your golden nuggets for the week ahead. And while you're here, take a moment and share a 5-star review so we can get the word out about this amazing space for busy moms. Until next time, remember, you are doing an amazing job, and a little grace goes a long way. Stay strong, mama.